let's do big picture electoral college. 6 weeks ago, Republicans told me that through their negative advertising and their defining of Kamala Harris, that by the time we got to the early voting, that the big three Sunbelt states of Arizona, Michigan, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia would be put away, and that Trump would be at least a slight favorite in Pennsylvania, and that would give him enough to win. And there are many people, many Republicans, almost all Republicans, many independent analysts, and some Democrats who say that's where we are, that Harris has only one path now. The vice president has to win the three blue wall states because she's not going to win the three big Sunbelt states. I'm not sure that's true, but a lot of people think it's true. Dan, do you think that's true, that she's basically can't win at this point, or very unlikely to win Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, and therefore must win the three Rust Belt states?
I agree with you about Arizona. I agree with you-ish about North Carolina. And there was a story yesterday about kind of concerns about the black turnout as a percentage of the electorate being worrying. Some Democrats I really trust feel like Georgia is closer and like there is a realistic shot there. Nevada, frankly, I think Democrats are more worried because of all the 7 swing states where it's hard to argue with the early vote, not looking good. It's Nevada. And I think, yeah, to your point, or Sean maybe said it, Pennsylvania is close. I mean, it is really, really close. I agree. She is probably down ever so slightly. And I think you could make that statement in all 3 blue wall states. But if you say that a great ground game is good for maybe a point may be, the difference. And so, yes, it's probably the blue wall is her best path. I'm not quite ready to say it's her only path, but I would be very nervous betting on a Sunbelt state.
Right. Well, just 2 things, and then Sean, to you. One is if she could win Georgia, it still wouldn't be enough. She'd still need to replace with one of the others, and the other 3 are tough. I will tell you that Kemp operation thinks that Trump has it, and I will tell you that Democrats in Georgia are extremely concerned about where early vote is.
Sure.
So, Sean.
So it's funny. I do this every Wednesday. Yesterday was the last one where I go through every state. You start putting those 4 electoral votes in play with New Hampshire if she takes Nevada. And suddenly that creates a whole nother set of paths for him, because that's 10 electoral votes that he wasn't counting on. I feel, look, I don't know that he'll win every one of the 7 battleground states. But as I've said before, look at where he is in trend wise. It's, Michigan right now, another poll came out showing him down slightly in Michigan. But if you look at the trend in Michigan over the last several polls, it's moving in his direction. Mike Rogers, the Senate candidate there, moving in the right direction there. I don't know. Michigan and North Carolina, to me, are the most concerning states. I put Arizona at the top, Nevada.
Which are your most concerned? Which are your most?
Michigan and North Carolina.
For Trump, you're concerned about Trump.
Yeah. And then,
so that's interesting. Dan thinks Harris has a better chance in Georgia. You think Harris has a better chance in North Carolina.
I do. And I think because and I've said this before, the people in North Carolina that every time I talk to people in Western North Carolina, they're like, we're totally committed to vote. I don't doubt that 100 at all. I think that they might logistically have a problem with voting. I talked to some folks there. If they've made it easy to vote in Nashville, it's very difficult for some of these rural folks to get to early voting sites. And I know that the Trump campaign is working to get more early voting sites moved up, but that's just that's a logistical reality. So you can be completely motivated. That's what concerns me in North Carolina. Plus the fact that, look, if you look at the swing from 2016 to 2020, it largely had to do with how well Jill Stein got. Trump won North Carolina with 174,000 votes. In 2016, Jill Stein got 120,000 votes. When they didn't have her on the ballot in 2020, the Green Party got 12,000 votes. Trump won by 1.34%. That's not big. So it's going to be tight. I think how the Green Party does could have a large effect there. So that North Carolina concerns me for those reasons. But I would have taken Nevada way lower on the list a month ago. I now put that right behind Arizona ahead of Georgia.
Yeah, although it's less important because it's got fewer electoral votes. Right.
Right, but that's why I'm saying you pair those 6 with the 4 potentially in New Hampshire, and you're making up a state.
Right. So I'll say 2 things about the electoral vote. But first, popular vote. Trump's going to blow Florida out to such a degree that if he overperforms as they believe he will in California and New York, Trump could win the popular vote. because the Florida gap
agree.
is going to be massive. So let's say Harris wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. There's still two potential problems. One that Sean raised, which could be New Hampshire, could be Minnesota, could be New Mexico, maybe could be Virginia, but that's less likely than the other three. Just as you two have a dispute about which is a more likely Harris state, North Carolina and Georgia, although again, most of my sources, including Democratic sources, are not bullish on her in either one. The three alternative states could be the difference, right? Even if Harris wins the three blue wall states, if Trump wins any of New Hampshire, Minnesota, or New Mexico and holds the Sun Belt, he wins. So you got to watch for that. The other thing is faithless electors. If it's 270 for Harris and Trump can get one elector to switch, that could make the difference. I'm not predicting it. I'm not rooting for it. I'm just telling you, keep an eye on that.
Can I ask you a question just real quick?
Yeah.
Do you think, based on 2016, if there's a faithless elector, and I know not every state permits it,
Yeah.
but I also wonder, I'm shocked. I actually would have thought you would have said it would be the other way. I would see more.
It could be the other way too, but I'm just saying on this scenario where she gets 270, if you're a Harris person worried about winning, I'm saying don't assume your work is done if you win the three blue wall states.
I will tell you the interesting thing is, we mentioned what matters. Dan brought up ground game. I 100% agree with him. I actually think it's probably worth a little more than a point, maybe even closer to 3.
Yeah.
But I will say this is interesting. As an elector in 2004, the Bush campaign wanted to know everything about you. And I just wonder how much time and effort's been put into vetting electors.